Okay, we are officially live. Hello, ladies, and hello, Atlantic Baptist women out there. We are so excited to have this opportunity to speak to three lovely ladies about their recent trip to New York City. So just to start things off, I'd ask for each of you to share your name and where you live, and maybe one or two things about yourself, whatever you would like to share. Shannon, why don't you start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Shannon Scaft, and two or three things about me. I like long walks on the beach. No, I'm married. I have one son, and I'm on the executive at Atlantic Baptist Women. I'm a stay-at-home mom who homeschools my one wonderfully intelligent and delightful son. That's me.
Awesome. Pass the baton along there, Shannon.
Hey, Melody, your turn.
Thanks, Shannon. And hi, everybody. I'm Melody Maxwell. I live in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, and I teach church history, Baptist studies, all sorts of fun things at Acadia Divinity College here. And I guess one fun thing is that I moved here from Texas a little more than a year and a half ago now. So I'm very happy to be a part of Atlantic Baptist Women.
And that leaves Marina.
Hi, I'm Marina Ripley, and I am a recent graduate of Acadia Divinity College. I actually will officially graduate on Friday, and I'm finishing my MA in theology. And I presently am an elementary teacher here living in Ormocto, New Brunswick, and I have done my my degree through distance education. So.
Congratulations, that's so exciting. And it instantly makes me think of our women who would love to be presenting you with a quilt in person at our annual conference, but allow us to take this moment to say congratulations. That's so wonderful. All right, so I think Shannon's going to explain for us a little bit about just the basic details of the trip. Who went, why, where, what was going on, that sort of thing. So if you could set it up for us, Shannon, that'd be great.
Sure. So every year, the UN hosts the Commission for the Status of Women. It's a global forum, and there are many countries represented, and they talk about things like education and gender equality and kind of bettering the world and bettering women in the world. This year, we had a group of 5 from the Atlantic provinces that were going to head down to it. And well, COVID-19 happened, and the UN decided that they would cancel the commission, which was a little disheartening. But we were really blessed to have women who had some connections that were part of our little Baptist troop. And they made a secondary plan, and the 3 of us here, continued on to the trip. 2 members decided to stay home, which was a wise decision in some cases, and that's great. We missed them, but it was still a really good week. We had a chance to visit with various ministries and to hear from the women within our group. There were, I think, 13 of us, and maybe 12. I'm blanking because we're live. There were 12 or 13 women with us, and from all over. We had women from Nigeria and from the States and from the UK. It was kind of delightful to have such a broad spectrum of women, and we gathered and we learned a lot. So that was early March. So yeah, right before the big outbreak of everything went crazy in New York. We were there, and God was good. Yeah.
So this secondary plan now allowed you to see various ministries within New York City, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Hands-on, yeah, grassroots ministries on the ground.
Mm-hmm. So my next question for each of you would be if you could share a little bit about one of the ministries that spoke to you. So why don't we start this time with Marina?
Okay, so I think they all spoke to me. Prior to going, I was very excited to be going to the UN because that had been like a dream of mine to go to the UN and to learn about the things that they were doing. But the prayer on my heart was that the Lord would really guide me and help me to know what direction he wanted me to take, because when the Status of Women conference was going to go on, we would have had hundreds of different choices of different NGOs to go visit and to learn about what was happening around the world. So that was my prayer. Lord, help me, direct me to the sessions you want me to go to learn about where it is that you're directing me. So when it was canceled, it became very apparent and very clear that that direction was very pointed and very guided. So Lauren Bethel kind of took over the planning at that point, and she arranged sessions for us with groups in New York City, but also among the women in our group, they all had various ministries. And I think for me, that was the most significant, was learning about the ministries that the women in our very own group were doing around the world. So Ruth Robb from Luton in England spoke to us about her organization and how they are providing help for women as well as men that are involved in the world of sex trafficking. And she talked about the education and the way that they were changing how women, victims were being treated and how perpetrators were being treated. So in the UK, when police did a raid of a large sex trafficking unit or ring, what they did is they would go in and they would corral everyone, bring them to the police precinct, and interrogate everybody, victims and perpetrators together. And as a result of the work that her organization was doing, they began to do that differently so that the victims were not treated in the same manner as the perpetrators. So they were treated with dignity, with love, and with care. And then they were offered counseling, education, and other opportunities to help the women to escape the life of sex trafficking. She explained to us that 100% of the victims of sex trafficking had shared with them stories of this having begun with sexual child abuse with them as a child. She said that this really isn't a choice that these women are making. She said that the statistics and the studies that they have done and that they have read up show that the women that are involved in the sex trade industry, she said between 90 and 100%, she believes 100%, have been victims of child molestation. So for me, as a teacher, that really hit home for me, because that tells me that we've got a lot of work to do. And that if we want to prevent our women from doing, from this happening to them as adults, we have to reach them as children. We have to reach them at the point that these things are happening. We cannot wait. We don't need to wait until they're 21 and involved in prostitution or sex trafficking. If we could reach them when they were young, when they were little children, and they've been hurt or they've been abused, and we can begin the healing at that point, perhaps we can save them from a life of pain and suffering. And I think that that's what Jesus is calling us to do, is to minister to people of all ages. And so this has really been on my heart since I've been home. So I've been working on trying to find out how it is that God would have me to work in this area, in this department. And another one of the women that was on the trip with us, her name was Jenny Sue Jessen, and she had written a book. This is her book here called The Lucky One. And in the book, she outlines her life and the abuses that she suffered as a child. So she was sexually abused by her grandfather and trafficked. So he began selling her at the age of 3 years old. She sat in the church pews, and sometimes sitting in front of her were people who had purchased her body the previous night before and had beaten her badly. So she grew up in church. This is not an unchurched child from an unchurched family. On the outside, they looked like the good Christian family. She was dressed in fancy little dresses and fancy little shoes, and she came to church. So these children are sitting in our pews. There are children in our pews who are hurting and who are abused. And I think God wants us to find them and to help them to heal and minister to them. So this book, The Lucky One, details Jenny's journey and how the Lord ministered to her and how she was able to escape that life of sex trafficking that was forced upon her at the age of 3. So this, I would say that this was the most meaningful. The trip, everything about the trip, all the ministries that we saw, they were all very amazing. And it was amazing to see what God is doing. But I think for me personally, this is where God was speaking to me and saying, Marina, he laid this on my heart because I am an elementary teacher. I teach grade 1, and I have a love and compassion for children. And I think that this is where the Lord is calling me and saying, Marina, this is where you're going to be working. I'm going to be, he's going to be with me, and he's going to be guiding me and directing me, and showing me where it is that this is. I know that this is the kind of the overall theme of where the Lord's moving me. I'm just not quite sure right now how it's going to look.
That's amazing, Marina. Thank you so much for sharing. I can really relate to a lot of what you're saying. I'm a teacher too, and it just probably opens your eyes even more to kind of be on guard kind of for your students and kids, and makes you kind of analyze situations. Or yeah. You had mentioned the UN, and I think one of the pictures I have here is your group standing outside the UN. If I can, hopefully I can just share it for a second so that our viewers can see.
Yes,
Hopefully everybody can see that.
Yes.
Good.
So we all went on a walk, and we walked to this area, and we wanted to just stand in front of the country flags. It was closed and we couldn't get in, but we were able to go down and see and be on the grounds of the UN. And we actually were able to go in the church across the street from this. So that was really very nice. So you can see all the women in our group from left to right. Rachel's in the middle from Nairobi. Lauren Bethel is the blonde lady wearing glasses in the middle. Next to her is Allison, and you can see Melody is right here next to Rachel, and Shannon is in behind Melody. And then on the far right are the 2 ladies that I mentioned. So the furthest lady on the right carrying the pink blanket, that's Jenny Sue Jessen. And right behind her is Ruth Robb. And those were the 2 ladies that I just mentioned that had spoke to us about sex trafficking.
Awesome. I think we'll pass the baton over to Melody. Melody, could you share with us about a ministry that spoke to you?
I'd be glad to. It was really neat to get to see so many different ministries throughout the week, and also to hear the women's stories. And there were several that stood out to me, but one that I was thinking of is called Graffiti 2 Community Ministries. I'd actually grown up hearing about Graffiti 1, which is a fairly well-known Baptist ministry in New York and the circles I grew up in. And so Graffiti 2 is sort of an offshoot of that that's in the South Bronx. And it's a ministry center that does so much. I mean, it was incredible to see. They don't have many full-time staff, and those folks are working extremely hard as missionaries there in the city. And so we were able to come in and see some spring break student missionaries who were working there. And we saw them doing a children's program, tutoring after school. We saw ESL classes with people who are immigrants to the community who are trying to learn English. We saw a huge resource center they have full of supplies that they give out to their community. We saw where they have Bible studies and coffee clubs and even church services every week. And it was really neat to get to sit down with the missionary there and really hear about the work they do. We also saw some handicrafts that the women make as a fair trade artisan ministry for them to earn an income. And that was neat. And we got to do a little shopping, which we all enjoyed, to support that ministry as well. And it was also neat when we were there, we saw a young man who came up and they told us that he had grown up in the ministry there and had gone to tutoring and after school club and all the summer camps they do and everything like that. And that his life had been changed as a result. And he had finished high school, which not everyone in the community does, and that he had gone on to university and just graduated, and he had now come back to help invest in the ministry. And just to hear his story and to see him and the difference that God had made in his life was incredible, and to see him pouring back into others was really encouraged me to support work that Christians and Baptists are doing around the world in New York City, and also think about what I and we are doing in our own communities to reach out. So that was really inspiring and a full moment for me, I think.
That's incredible to get to see, you know, the layering or the passing on sort of, that he would come back, and obviously he sees the benefit that this changed me, and now what can I do but to also help change others. Awesome. Shannon, your turn.
My turn. I had, like Rena, I think that the part that really spoke to me was the women in our group sharing their stories and what God had called them to do. But also a ministry that really speaks to me was Street to Street, which is about on the ground, community-based mentoring. It starts as basketball tournaments, and it connects the Wall Street to the streets. And Allison, who was in that picture that we showed earlier, she and her father work with this ministry, and a gentleman named Clint. And I think we have a picture of the three of them. Yeah, we'll see if it pulls up, but that's cool. They have a motto, a logo, not a logo. See, I can't talk right now. Their phrasing is to play, belong, and to matter. And so, oh yeah, there they are. Allison spoke with us about her heart for ministry and for kids. Right now it's heavily focused on young boys, but she felt God wanted to call somebody. It had to be somebody to come and bring some girls a space to play and to belong and to learn that they matter. And someone tapped her on her shoulder, and God was like, hey, I think it's you. If you're, feeling that there's a need to be filled, maybe you should fill it. So
someone should do this.
Yeah, right.
Guess who that
Exactly.
someone is?
I feel like there's a hole to be filled, so I guess so.
People think, oh, someone should do that. Well, if you're thinking that, maybe it's you. Be careful.
Right? Be careful what you're praying about, because God might say, I'm calling you to it. So she is working on like a girls version, the girls side of that. And she also was pretty instrumental in teaching us all where the Starbucks are. She helped us navigate the subway and kind of got sucked into our group. She started coming along to different ministries with us. It was wonderful to have her as an unplanned person, but a wonderful and a delightful addition to it. She helped us to get where we were going, like to Harlem, where we walked around with Street to Street. We are at, I think we walked all the way up to Sugar Hill and around, and just saw like the courts where the kids would play, the police stations where they would get local leadership to come in and help coach and help play and be mentors. Part of their tournaments and the strategy is to teach the children and to show the children that they matter, these young youth, that they're important. So they hire referees, real referees. They don't just get Joe from down the street, and they have like trophies and awards, and they have pizza parties, and it's a way to invest in their lives to show them their worth in a very practical and fun way. I enjoyed how they spoke of it, because every time Clint or Woody or Allison talked, their eyes just lit up about watching that one kid know that he's got value because he is just him, and that's enough, and it's beautiful. And I feel like it's one of those things that we can bring back here to our end of the province, our up into Canada. I mean, just to be able to teach kids their value and their worth, and to show them that we can have fun together. And so that was my next biggest influence, I think, for the week. But there's so many points. Turning point was it's a gender, I don't want to get wrong, gender-based violence support resource center. That's a lot of words. It's primarily for Muslim women and families, and it deals with domestic violence, and it deals with inequalities and how they can help with that. They run youth groups. They have ESL classes and like basic skill development, and they're advocates for healthy relationships within their context. And it was beautiful. There's also, I think, a picture of myself sitting and chatting. I mentioned that I was a homeschool mom, and one of the young women who worked there said, "Hey, I was homeschooled." And I was really excited to find out that she turned out normal and delightful. So there's hope for homeschool kids. And we had a good laugh about it. But we really got to talk and to really just invest in each other, and to learn more about each other, coming from a Baptist worldview and a Muslim worldview, and how the goals really are the same, that we want to have healthy and whole individuals, that their resource center focuses on caring and loving and extending helping hands. And just like any other resource center under any other specific group, that's the main goal, that we can come together as with different theology, but have the same goal and be able to work alongside. And it was very eye-opening and quite wonderful to see that we don't all have to be exactly the same, and we can still do good. And it was really nice. That's my
Awesome.
ministry. Yeah.
I mean, my next question, maybe you feel like you've already answered it, and so that's fine. But if you have a different answer, then please share it. But it is, where did God show up for you, or somewhere that you saw God at work?
Me again?
Sure.
Sure. I think it was definitely at the very beginning when the UN said that because of the COVID, they're not going to take any chances, they're going to cancel it. And for a second, my whole heart just was like, what? But God, you called me to this, and there's got to be a bigger picture. And then, like Rena said, he filtered it all down to these beautiful stories and these beautiful ministries, and a chance to really spend time, instead of sitting in a giant conference room with hundreds of women listening to a law professor from Harvard talk about domestic violence within churches and how we need to handle that better. We got to sit in a room and have a chat with this person and ask questions and engage. And so I think God showed me how plans can run amok, and God is still there, and he's still doing good things, and there's still a lot to learn. So God spoke to me about being flexible. Lots of flexibility that week, and we being prepared for that flexibility and knowing that it's all right, we'll get through, and we're going to learn a lot. And yeah, so that's one thing. I mean, so many things, all the things. God spoke about all the things all the time, but that was
I think we're still kind of learning that right now through everything we're going, but I guess we kind of have to see it as a positive interruption, or,
yeah.
A lot of the times, when there's interruptions in our lives, it's an opportunity. So
divine opportunities in our interruptions.
True. Yeah. Truth. How about you, Melody?
Yeah, I can echo what Shannon and Marina have both already said, and that is hearing the stories of the women from our group was a powerful experience. I had been to this conference in 2017 with Baptist World Alliance Women. I'm really grateful to have gone then. And so I had the UN experience, which was incredible. And this was a very different one, but yes, being able to hear from those in our group, you get together and everyone flies in, you don't know them, they're from all over the world, mostly across North America. And you think, oh, these are nice women, we have lunch or dinner together or something, but you have no idea of these women's stories and their journeys and their ministries and the way God has empowered them and worked in their lives. And just being able to sit sometimes in awe of what you're hearing, or you can't believe what you're hearing, and to think, wow, God has put me among these people, this is amazing. I sat in a taxi with Rachel from Nigeria and asked her about the women's conferences they do in their Baptist women's group. And she told us how they don't tell their families when they're going to northern Nigeria because they could get killed or kidnapped, and their families could be extorted for that or something. And so she said they don't really know if they're going to be safe when they go, but they just trust God and they go to these locations. They go to some very dangerous locations where churches have been burned and lots of persecution has happened, but they trust God and they continue the women's work there. And I think, wow, if they can do that, what is God calling me to do in my own safe, cushy, lovely context? And how can I learn from the faith of women like her? So I think the other participants on the trip and their faith really stood out to me.
While you were speaking, I had to make a note because you inspired something, but I'm going to share it later. Marina, your turn. If you had anything else, no pressure.
I would say the same on the same lines as Melody and Shannon, that for me, it was seeing the way that God wound our hearts together that week. So as we spent a lot more time together than I think we normally would have. So on the trip, if it had been as we had planned, we would be attending the status of women. We would be breaking off in different sessions and going to different NGOs, but we were together for the entire week, the whole group of us 14 women. So we spent so much good quality time together, and the Lord really used that time to knit our hearts together. So I really consider all of the women on the trip friends. And we've created a group on Facebook where we support each other, pray for each other, and we're continuing to be in each other's lives. So it was a very profound experience because of the change that happened because of COVID. And I think that that having a network of these amazing women is really an amazing takeaway from the trip as well.
That's so wonderful. We're coming to a close, ladies. You're doing so amazingly well. I know there was a little bit of maybe anxiety or fear surrounding the live situation, but you're nailing it. Excellent job. Just wondering if there's any other final thoughts or closing remarks. I don't want to take away the opportunity if there was something really burning in your heart that you wanted to say or didn't want to leave out. Open the floor.
I'll add a word of thank you to Atlantic Baptist Women for the bursaries that helped make our trip possible in many ways. And I would invite all Baptist women in Atlantic Canada and beyond to get involved with Baptist World Alliance Women and look into the global celebration coming up. It'll be now next summer in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Lots of exciting things coming up. And through Atlantic Baptist Women, we're a part of this bigger global family. And it's such a blessing to be a part in whatever ways that you can be.
Thank you, Melody. Awesome. Anything else, ladies?
Yes, I'd like to thank Atlantic Baptist Women as well. They worked very hard to put the conference together. They worked really hard on the logistics end of it, the paperwork that they did on behalf of all of us participants in order to make it so that we could go. All of that hard work, we really appreciate the hard work that they put into it and the financial backing that they did, and we thank them for their prayers for us while we were away. So we're just very thankful and grateful for this opportunity.
Yes, I would lovingly echo that as well. It was a great chance and a wonderful opportunity to go, and without the support of ABW Women and the bursaries, it wouldn't have been possible. And I know a lot of women were praying for us as we went. I know that I had a whole prayer force that were committed to praying every day, and then when COVID kind of popped up, they just amped up their prayers. And so it was just a great experience, and I'm so very grateful for the women who helped orchestrate it and to go with, and the women that I went with, for Melody and Marina. It was lovely to have you as plain partners and instant friends. And so, yeah, it was just a lovely time and a very blessed time. So, Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks everybody who helped. Anybody who did anything to get me anywhere close to how awesome that was. Thanks.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you all so much for your time and your sharing your testimony. What I was really taking away from this time that we've shared together is the importance of our stories. So are you hearing this, ladies? Here we have a group of women who went away, and what they're saying was most impactful for them was other women sharing their stories. So I just want to encourage you today to share your story with others. You may think that it's insignificant, or maybe you have shame or embarrassment, but I bet you could touch another life, someone else. I just think that's the big takeaway here, the importance of our stories and what God has done in our lives. So I thank you for now sharing this part of your story of this awesome trip that you had. And again, we thank ABW for these opportunities to support women to have these experiences and then to come back and share them with us and kind of fire us up, which is always wonderful and important. And hopefully we'll have more opportunities in the future for travel and conference and these sorts of things. But in the meantime, we'll just have to share our stories on Zoom.
Yay for Zoom.
Oh dear. Anyway, we'll sign off now and we'll say goodbye. Until next time. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thanks again.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.